We're live.
Great. All right. Thank you, Diana. Welcome to Unanswered Questions, the show where we bring you the truth about 9/11 with your hosts, Bruce Stanley and Diana Castillo. And today is a very special day because today is the 22nd anniversary of the worst terrorist attack in American history. And over the years, many of us have learned that the official narrative that we were told is not true, is not accurate. It's not actually what happened. And in response, a movement started to find out the truth of what actually happened that day. And in our show, we assemble the evidence that has been collected over the years to bring you the truth. And so this year we have some important updates. We actually have some good news. It looks like we're making some progress on the issue, and it looks like finally it's slowly starting to become more of a mainstream issue and it's starting to enter the political dialogue. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. But first, I want to turn it over to Diana, who recently attended some events in DC as part of the hosted by the Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Truth, who is really at the cutting edge of trying to bring justice for the events of that day. So take it away, Diana. Tell us what you learned at this Lawyers Committee event this year.
Well, it was a case, September 8th. I have here the briefing. You can't see it out. Well, I'm going to show my presentation.
So it was September 8th is when this hearing took place?
Yes, correct. Okay, so it was the AE 9/11 Truth versus NIST, and this was on September 8th, just a few days ago.
So this was part of the activities of DC 9/11 Truth, which I know that you've been a part of for.
No, it wasn't. It was, do you see my screen now?
Yes, Lawyers for 9/11 Truth, AE 9/11 Truth versus NIST.
Yeah, it was a court case. So it had nothing to do with the.
No, but were there? I'm sorry, but I know that you were participating with DC for 9/11 Truth over the years. Were there other attendees? Are there other DC 9/11 Truth folks that attended this event?
Yeah, and you're going to see a video that's included here. You're going to see them on screen, and I'm also going to go over what they're doing separately at the end of this, after you, in our third section. So,
great.
Okay, so this is the web of the Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Truth Inquiry, because we are hoping that people can donate, because what they're doing is very important. This is the copy of the oral argument that I just went to attend at the district court. And I have the whole copy. He's saying that when he gave it to me, he said, maybe this will be worth a lot of money someday. I hope so.
So Gina, I'm seeing this for the first time. Gina Raimondo is involved. I know she was the former Rhode Island governor. So that's interesting that she's involved in her capacity as the Secretary of Commerce. That's interesting.
She was representing NIST. So yeah, that's weird. She was speaking on behalf of NIST. So the Supreme Court, about 2 or 3 months ago, they took a case to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said they didn't have standing, which means that they said architects and engineers and the lawyers didn't have, they're not entitled to have a federal court resolve the grievance. So this case that they're having was basically, again, to ask for standing, because that's one of the first step is to I'm not a lawyer, to have the legal system give you standing. So this is a video at the courthouse. Okay, we're here in front of the courthouse, William Bryan Annex, United States Courthouse. We just had a case of the architects and engineers and the family members versus NIST, for NIST having released a sham report. I was at the courthouse with about 6 other people, and we could not hear everything they said, but we did interview the lawyer after on Rumble. So you are the lead attorney, Harrison. And we're here at the Court of Appeals. We just had a case of the 9/11 Truth and the families against NIST.
Correct.
How do you think it went?
I've been doing arguments for 31 years, and I've given up trying to predict based on the questions and answers how the court is thinking. The judges tend to ask questions that are probing and critical of both sides of the argument. So you can't read too much into that. And I think folks listening who are not lawyers may get an impression that may not be accurate about which way the court is leaning. And I would caution in either direction against trying to guess the outcome. As an example, during this argument, one of the judges asked whether we included in the appendix the appeal documents before the agency, which we didn't. And someone might think that might be a fatal error, but it's not actually a requirement to include those particular documents in an appendix. The entire record is available to the court. So you really, even if you're a lawyer and understand those things, you still can't predict which way the court is going to go. So I'm not ready to say. They did ask some good questions. I would say that.
When will we find out the results?
It typically takes at least months. And I've also I'm trying to predict timing on judicial decisions. But if I were to guess, I would say 6 months would be probably the best estimate.
What's the next case you're going to be doing?
Next case. Well, we have a filing. It might actually be made later today against the FBI. It's a Freedom of Information Act case. The Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry requested the major bombings cases files of the FBI. The FBI had announced they were going to archive their major bombing cases files, which included a lot of photographs, among other things. So we asked for them, and the FBI first said, well, if you give us $3,000, we'll give you the files. We agreed to give them the money, and then they said, oh, we can't really give the files to you anyway.
Miss, you can't film.
Okay,
we have to go downstairs? Sorry.
Right. Thank you.
So you turn it.
Okay. So we got interrupted, but we're outside now. Tell me more about the FBI case. I'll put it together in the video.
Okay, so the FBI eventually decided they would not give us the major bombing cases files. So they're claiming that they're still enforcement sensitive, as if there's some ongoing investigation that prevents their release. Now, you might wonder, why did we ask for major bombing cases files when we're focused on 9/11? And the answer is the FBI includes in their major bombing cases the attacks on the Pentagon and the attacks on the World Trade Center on 9/11. So those are part of their major bombing cases, which is an interesting.
Yeah, and they call it a bombing case.
And they call it a bombing case.
Yeah.
So we are suing them shortly to acquire those records under the Freedom of Information Act. If you tune into our Lawyers Committee event on Sunday, 2 days from now, you'll hear a little more about our future litigation plans and strategies. We're actually still exploring alternative ways of getting the demolition evidence into the hands of a grand jury. And for those who followed us, our first plan A, as we call it, in New York didn't succeed, as far as we can tell anyway. The court didn't give us a remedy in New York, but there are still options for getting that evidence into the hands of a grand jury. So we'll be hearing more about that.
Again, about the bombing case, I think the code name for the 9/11 is
Pent bomb.
That's kind of
Telling?
yes. All right. Well, thank you, and good luck to you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're here. So here I have some comment from some of the other people that were there. Subi, leader of the DC 9/11 Truth for a very long time. What is your impression of the case today? How it went?
Well, I thought that Nick made a really excellent presentation. I was impressed with how clear and strong he is, and the judges seemed to listen and ask relevant questions. So hopefully we'll see a little justice come out of this.
Yeah.
You can only hope.
I felt that really the case is whether we have standing or not, right?
Yeah, I guess.
And
really,
I felt like I intuitively thought that they thought we did have standing. So I'm hoping that's how it comes out.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. Kathy Boylan has been a long-time 9/11 Truth activist.
Yeah.
You've been standing outside the White House and the Pentagon for years. Are you still doing that?
Yes.
Wow, amazing. So what time on the White House and what time on the Pentagon?
White House is noon to 1, which I will not be doing today.
Every day or?
No, Fridays from
Every
noon to
Friday
1.
from noon to 1.
And Mondays at the Pentagon from 7 to 8 in the morning.
Wow, okay.
So the sign says 9/11 was an inside job to lead to war in Guantanamo. And that we have to remember that we are dooming unless we take, unless we find the truth about 9/11 and imprison those really responsible, like Rumsfeld, Bush, Cheney. We are dooming the poor people that are languishing and being tortured at Guantanamo for being the masterminds of 9/11. The United States government leaders were the masterminds of 9/11, not Sheikh Khalid Mohammed, who was tortured, waterboarded 172 times, and then he confessed to be the mastermind of 9/11. He wasn't. So
thank you very much.
all right, thank you.
And we'll hope more people come and join you next time.
Thank you. All right. Go for it.
So I just, here again, I wanted to put the link. You can either donate to support the legal actions, which is, you go to this page, Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry.org, with a dash between the 9/11. You can either donate to their legal actions, or you can also donate to a film series that Richard Gage is making, where they're making a film with chapter by chapter evidence to present to the jurors for this case. And that's, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, it really gives you, watching these videos, it gives me a sense, reminds you that there's an intergenerational struggle to all of this. And, I became a truther back in 2006. And so when you look back, it's there's a lot of memories over the years. There's a lot of key figures that have really taught us a lot, that have really uncovered a lot. And it's inspiring, I think, whenever you see that there's folks out there who are still in the fight and who have a long institutional memory of this. But I really hope that the younger generations understand the importance of the issue and pick up on this. It reminds me of a couple years back for the 20th anniversary. We were at Fort Lauderdale Beach for the anti-war protest that was taking place earlier in the day. And I remember you were engaging a group of teenage kids, and I remember coming over there and just trying to get a sense of their reaction, and they were really not interested. And at one point, one of the kids was like, "Yeah, sounds interesting," like in a almost kind of like sarcastic kind of way. And I thought, man, I really hope these kids understand how much worse off there's just the day-to-day experience, and how much worse off their future is going to be as a consequence of this event. I mean, that the amount of debt that was incurred was created out of thin air. What, $3 trillion, $6 trillion, all told. And the consequence of that is that everyone has to be taxed to the maximum possible level throughout your life, everywhere, in order to deal with this insane, out of control, and unconstitutional national debt. So these are the aspects that all come into play when we talk about why is 9/11 still important. I mean, you remember the world before 9/11. So much of what we've seen since would have been unthinkable to what we all thought the future was going to be like growing up in the pre-9/11 world, right?
I always thought something was wrong before 9/11 and after, but I thought it was something wrong with me. When I heard about 9/11, I found out it was not me, but it was the world that was wrong. So, but you were going to mention that a lot of current politicians are talking about 9/11 now.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the good news that we have to bring on this anniversary, is that finally it looks like we're making some headway and cracking the mainstream on this issue. Recently, some high-profile figures have, I would say, they've dog whistled on the issue. They've hinted at it, maybe not necessarily fully endorsed the alternative narratives. But for example, Tucker Carlson recently, who after he went independent on his show, and he brought up on a couple of interviews this idea that we weren't told the full truth about 9/11, which is very significant because years ago, there's a famous clip of Tucker Carlson like making fun of 9/11 truthers and really just completely dismissing in a harshly critical way the issue. And this was the attitude that just reigned supreme and with all these mainstream media figures for so many years. But look what's happening. All of a sudden there's cracks in the armor appearing, and now they're starting to realize, major political pundits and political candidates, political figures are starting to realize, you're not going to have credibility going forward if you get this issue wrong, because the awareness is spreading despite all the censorship, despite the fact that so many are afraid to engage on this issue. Recently, one of the Republican presidential candidates, Vivek Ramaswamy, came out swinging and thought he could be very slick and suggest that we weren't told the full truth about 9/11 and then move on. But unfortunately for him, the political pundit class wouldn't let that go. If you want to share my screen here, there's a very interesting headline that came out of all this. Vivek Ramaswamy says he wants the truth about 9/11. Now, I mean, it's been a long time coming for 9/11 truth to enter into a presidential race in this way. And then, of course, in response, Mike Pence fired back and said, this is an insult. And then so all of a sudden it became
what was the name of that actor?
story.
What was the name of that woman that also criticized Vivek? The female newscaster.
Oh, you're referring to the Megyn Kelly.
Yeah, Megyn Kelly
came out against him. So Megyn Kelly went up against him for his comments on 9/11. And what's fascinating about this is that Vivek Ramaswamy is not even a 9/11 truther. He's just trying to play a slick game and hint at the issue in a way that connects with a lot of voters, a growing number of voters that want to hear this. And so he thought he could get away with it, but it was dogging him, and he kept having to answer questions about it. And for us as 9/11 truth activists, this is one of the most, as far as I'm concerned, this is the most interesting thing that has happened this presidential election cycle, is that 9/11 truth is suddenly entering into the conversation. And I think Megyn Kelly is going to regret taking the wrong side of the issue. Like, are we at a place in 2023 that you can completely ridicule the idea that there's alternative theories about 9/11? I think that's.
If you look at her YouTube and you look at all the comments, 99.9% of them are saying, Megan, you're wrong. You've disappointed me, Megan. Everybody, it seems like a huge amount of her audience knows about 9/11, and they let her know in the comments on the YouTube. So it's good that it's all coming out. It's all in the news. The more people talk about something, the more the truth is likely to spread. It'll eventually, at this rate, become like the Kennedy assassination. That everybody knows it, except the media. We'd like the media to know about it.
Exactly. I mean, there were a couple other shows as well. Kim Iverson, I believe she did a show, a pro 9/11 truth show.
Building 7 on Redacted.
Yep, she did a Building 7 show.
And that's on YouTube. It's amazing that it wasn't banned.
Yep, and this is significant because for the most part, I consider in this day and age, those that still have major platforms and get a lot of promotion and a lot of the personalities, you could call them controlled opposition because almost none of them are truthers. And it's only recently that they're starting to talk about it. So Kim Iverson is a good example, and also the show Redacted on YouTube, which has, I think, their own million or so followers. They did a Building 7 show, and this is actually inspiring because I know many of us have been struggling over the years to try to make some headway. I've probably organized, 8 or 9 9/11 truth events over the years, and of course it's always very, very difficult to get people out to that, to watch these long documentaries. But I think it's heartening that we're finally making some headway on the issue. But of course, there's been some severe consequences. This should have been a mainstream issue a decade ago. Right now,
Well, Donald
we
Trump even talked about it. Donald Trump said at the beginning that he thought a bomb had gone off when he was running years ago. He said that he thought that was the collapse was due to bombs because he was working in construction. And then he never talked about it again.
Yeah, I mean, maybe in some small way that played a role in his victory. The fact that on day one, there's old clips of him saying, it sounds like explosions, it sounds like the building was bombed, right? Again, he didn't necessarily follow up on that, but it's pretty shocking to have such a high profile figure saying those kinds of things back then. And then you flash forward to on the campaign trail in South Carolina, he said, if you elect me, you'll find out who really did 9/11. Now, once again, that didn't necessarily come to fruition, but it didn't prevent him from being elected that first time. It didn't make him unelectable for saying that, right? So, I mean, I don't know how long it's going to take. I think we need to see more voices. I mean, we all have a free platform on social media. We need to be seeing more. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to present what the people in DC that I saw.
Yeah, let's pivot over to that.
Okay. So I went to an event on Friday after the court case. And
what was the event?
It was the Catholic workers. Catholic workers have an event about 9/11 where it's a speaker and they have an audience of maybe 20 people and a speaker talks. And there was a speaker, I don't have the flyer, but they also today went out in front of the White House. Okay.
Here we go.
Do you see my PowerPoint now?
Okay, yep. So we're here in front of the...
Yeah, so these people, this is there was looks like 6 people in front of the White House. They were handing out 9/11 truth banners, flyers. And I wanted to especially point out this woman, Kathy Boylan, who you saw earlier speaking. She has been going outside of the Pentagon and outside of the White House, rain or snow or sleet. You know, the weather gets really bad in Washington. She's out there every week by herself. I mean, sometimes people join her, but she's really amazing. Been out there since 9/11, I believe. I mean, since 2001. So I wish more people would join her. She's there Fridays 12 to 1 in front of the White House, and Mondays 7 to 8. She's got this handmade sign, and she's a part of a group called Catholic Workers. So they are Catholics who are activists. This is the event they have every first Friday of every month. This is her phone number and her email. And the next event is going to be about Guantanamo. So I would hope that people would join them and also join Kathy in front of the White House and the Pentagon on her weekly trips.
I mean, I think these are some of the real unsung heroes who have proven how dedicated they are to how patriotic they are. It's just amazing that the media ignores the truly patriotic figures, the people who genuinely care about the truth. And
it's really hard to find Kathy Boylan's picture online. It's all blocked. There must be tons of pictures, but I can't find them. I found that one. But also her email comes in as spam because she's dangerous. This nun from a Catholic worker. She's a nun, but she doesn't they don't wear the robes.
Well, that's one of the things that we like to do as well on the show is highlight some of these key personalities who have been part of the 9/11 truth movement over the years that have really done a lot to contribute to public awareness of this event. And I would just want to say, in closing, we really can't underestimate the impact that 9/11 had. I mean, think about the implications of 9/11 truth. The United States just spent 20 years fighting a war based on a false flag. So that's what, $3 trillion, however many thousands of American lives, million displaced in Iraq, millions displaced in the Middle East. I mean, think about the refugee crisis that they're dealing with in Europe. And then let's think about our responsibility for causing that, because we destroyed all these countries in the Middle East over a lie, over a false flag. And because we went along with it, think about the loss of civil liberties. I mean, every time that you get on a flight, you have to be humiliated by taking your belt off and taking your shoes off and treated like a criminal and treated like a potential terrorist. Why? Because we all fell for it. We all went along with it. We spent 20 years fighting the war on terror. What was it, $6 to $7 billion worth of equipment that we left behind in Afghanistan? And because no one was held accountable, Afghanistan should have been the line in the sand. When we were repeating a Vietnam-like defeat on our watch, that should have been the moment of accountability, when we said, enough is enough. We know what happened on 9/11. It's time for accountability. Instead, what happened? Less than a year later, the same perpetrators and profiteers of 9/11 got us involved in a World War III scenario with Russia and China. How many billions of dollars have already been spent over to the Ukraine?
And how many people are dying? Like 500,000 Ukrainians, I heard, have died already.
And not one single mainstream political figure or media commentator will talk about it. It's still not an acceptable subject to talk about the fact that 9/11 was a false flag. Folks, 9/11 was a false flag. We've known this for many years now. We needed this geopolitical analysis a long time ago. We need political parties and political candidates that are willing to talk about this. We can't pretend that this is going to remain the elephant in the room. It's time for 9/11 Truth to be part of the mainstream political dialogue.
Yeah. So on that note, I think I'm glad we were here to talk to everybody on this day, and we'll be visiting with you again in the near future.
Very good. Thanks, Diana. And we will be back bringing you more 9/11 Truth on unanswered questions. Please check out all of our shows at rumble.com/911truth.
Thank you. Bye.